Greetings, fellow nerds and geeks. Why don't you pull yourself up a chair, grab yourself a beverage, and prepare to enjoy a geek-tastic conversation. Welcome to the Geek Easy.
Welcome back to another installment of the Geek Easy podcast. This is episode number 73 for October 16th, 2019. I am Pixel Dan, and I am once again joined by my co-hosts, Mr. Jonathan Leonard.
Hey.
And Jaron McCaffrey.
I get back here.
Yeah, we've switched spots a little bit. Kind of rearranged it.
Jaron's show now.
Jaron's the new host. I'll see you guys later. It's been great doing the show.
You don't have to leave just because you're not hosting.
Oh, I thought this was like my goodbye show or something. Okay.
Is
well,
it?
I'll
farewell to Pixel Dan.
Farewell to no.
And the viewership drops to 10.
Oh no.
Overnight.
From 14? That's not that bad.
Yeah. Christina stopped watching on all her 3 of her accounts.
Right.
And
How many listeners you got? Same as the amount of email addresses I have, plus 4.
All right, so we got a few things to talk about today. Lots of stuff that's kind of all over the place, I think. A few different movie discussions and some various movie-related news items, as we typically do on this show.
As we typically do. Why
don't we go ahead and just start, since we just got back from the movie theater. We just got home from the theater together. We all actually went out and watched a movie together, which I feel like we haven't done in a very long time.
In-game.
Since Endgame. But we went to the Fathom event that just happened for Kevin Smith's new movie, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. So why don't we go ahead and kick off the show and talk about my best friend Kevin Smith's new movie.
Your best friend? Hey.
Yeah, we're best friends. You didn't know that?
Call him and tell him we enjoyed ourselves.
Okay, I'll let him know. I'm going to send that message along to my best friend Kevin Smith.
No, like right now.
Oh, okay.
On the air.
Okay, on the air.
Yeah.
Live on the air. Let me call in and get him on the show so we can talk about his movie.
Ask him if he's ever been on a podcast before.
I think he invented podcasting.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, okay. I thought I read that in a history book or something.
In a history book. The history of podcasting.
Yeah, I was thinking, total side
by Kevin Smith.
Total side flash here that just got. But I was thinking about this the other day. Like, you know where I was thinking about that Rocket Man movie and how we're getting biopics of guys who are still out there actively performing now.
Yeah.
And that got me thinking, like, man, we're not more than, maybe 10 years away from starting to get biopics of the people who are starring in these big biopics. So, like, we're like half a generation away of seeing some actor playing Joaquin Phoenix play Johnny Cash. I think my head's going to explode when we get there.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I don't even... What's that? As Joaquin Phoenix.
Well, they're going to do
the role of Johnny Cash.
They're going to do a Joaquin Phoenix biopic one of these days.
And when
they do, they're going to be like, remember when he won his Oscar for playing this other person who's also real? Yeah.
That's totally a thing. Yeah. That will happen.
So you heard it here first.
Holy cow. Oh, man. So, where do we want to start with this? We don't have to give like a full breakdown or anything of this movie. I guess we should talk about how they're releasing this. It's very different. It's not like a regular theatrical release for these movies. But this is also kind of like his own little fun project that he did, right?
Everything about this from the ground up through the actual product is fan service to every degree. And like doesn't pretend to be anything else by any means or whatever. So like I think it's pretty cool how the whole thing has sort of come together like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something that he wanted to do. He put it together. He edited it himself, which he's been doing for his past several movies. That's just a thing he does now. He just puts together his own stuff and releases it. And instead of going through like a big studio or something to release the movie, he found a way to do what he's doing is just releasing it through these Fathom events. So there's 2 nights that you can go to the theaters to actually see this. And then after that, I think he's just going to do his usual like touring thing that he does with a lot of his stuff, where he goes and shows the movie and then does like a live Q&A with the crowd and stuff. So that's how this movie's being released.
Well, it's become so much about him, right? Like, he's the brand. He just happens to make movies as like an impetus for him to have something to talk about.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Well, it's funny when you think about, because like his career totally got like a reboot, right? Like talking about this movie being a reboot, but that's what happened to his career, because I mean, Kevin Smith was the guy that made all those movies, and then from making his own movies, he got other projects and worked on other stuff, and got to, he did Cop Out with Bruce Willis, which they made a lot of jokes about in this movie, which was funny.
Which I enjoyed.
But after that, he kind of he disappeared, and he kind of stopped doing that stuff a whole lot. But that's when he just like went full-time podcasting. Like that became his job, is just starting up podcasting. And then he started like a whole podcasting company, and a bunch of his friends started their own podcast, and they got like this network, and like that like revitalized him basically, because that just took off and became his job. Like that became his full-time job, was just doing these podcasts. Yeah. And that has grown into all these new opportunities for him, where he started writing for all these TV shows, getting to make new movies. It's pretty cool,
because
actually.
He started, I mean, Clerks was all guerrilla filmmaking.
Yeah.
Like he just went out and maxed out a bunch of credit cards and put this movie together, and then took it to a couple of festivals, and Miramax bought it. And I think they spent almost as much or a little more on, or something like that, on the soundtrack before they released it theatrically than the movie itself cost to make. Yeah. Because it was seriously done for like $30,000, which even in 1994 money is not a lot of money for a movie.
Right.
But then like all of his movies after that, like he got the studio involvement pretty much right away, but he was still making the Jay and Silent Bob characters, the View Askew-Universe stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of difference in those movies, but it's all still the same stuff. And he basically wrote that for about a decade, give or take.
Through the 90s there.
Yeah. Yep. And then I think it was after Clerks 2 that he had sort of walked away from it for a few years anyway, and then made Clerks 2, and then was like totally done with it for a while. Now, leading up to Clerks 2, they had announced Clerks 2 10 times. Yeah. And it fell apart 9 of them. Yeah. Since then, they've announced Mallrats 2 10 times, Clerks 3 10 times.
Yes, he does that a lot.
Yeah, all that stuff. But like he really started doing, when he started doing the podcast stuff, he took a few studio jobs.
Yeah.
He did like that Zack and Miri movie, which I think he wrote himself, but it wasn't like one of his regular movies. He did the Jersey Girl one, which wasn't one of his regular View Askew movies, and I think he had limited success with those. I don't think they were total failures.
You're forgetting Geely.
Oh, Geely,
That's not a Kevin Smith movie. That was a Ben Affleck movie.
I thought. Never mind.
No. Ben Affleck didn't direct it, but I don't think Kevin Smith had anything to do with it. I thought that was. Yeah, double check me there, but.
I'm sure I'm wrong.
Cop Out, I think, was like the first one he hadn't had any part of the process.
You know what I'm thinking? Geely came out. There was all that news because Geely came out and tanked real hard, and then the news was that they cut J-Lo out of
Jersey Girl. Right. That's right.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Yep. And you're right there. But I said Cop Out, I think, was the first thing he did that he didn't actually write himself. Mm-hmm. Like they just hired him and gave him a script and told him to make this movie. But then when he kind of disappeared from that stuff, I don't think he particularly enjoyed doing like the studio based stuff.
Right.
But he started doing those really smaller, like independent movies that were his own again. Yeah. But not anything to do, like so far out of the Jay and Silent Bob era that most of them are like kind of horror movies or pseudo horror movies. I was going to say,
and he was trying to move away because like Red State was
Red State
was a horror movie.
Tusk. He did Tusk.
Well, Tusk was a joke, right? Wasn't that the one where they joked about it on the podcast? They joked about it on a
podcast, and then it became a real movie because, it became one of like that movie came together because of his podcast and his podcast audience.
Yeah.
So that was made for them because that movie did not perform well at all.
Almost like a Snakes on a Plane type thing. Most of these didn't even get like theatrical releases. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Like I remember watching Red State and thinking, for an independent movie, it's fairly well made. It's got its interesting moments. It's not that great.
I never saw Red State.
I haven't seen it either.
There's nothing particularly remarkable about it by any means, like I said. And I saw it when it came out and don't remember it all that well. I don't remember hating it, but I don't remember liking it either. But I do remember thinking, interesting turn for Kevin Smith for sure. But everything just sort of felt like fish out of water, except for his own universe stuff.
Yeah.
Which is funny because those in and of themselves are fish out of water in comparison to any other movie, you know?
Right.
I think he has had some success on the TV side, doing some of those DC shows.
I mean, he's been doing all the Supergirl stuff and the Flash stuff and everything.
Yeah, he's been helping out a lot with those and directing several of them, and he's done real well there. But this is really like his kind of return to form on doing, like his stuff here.
Right.
And again, it is. I mean, this movie is. There are parts of it that are shot for shot, just a remake of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which in and of itself was just a fan service movie. Like that movie existed to make in-jokes about all of his other movies and characters, and this one exists to do it again 18 years later. Now, if that sounds like a poor review of the movie, I don't intend it as one, because I enjoyed it, because that's what I got out of it. But it is to forewarn you that if you're looking for something new or fresh, you won't get that. You'll just get reminded of a bunch of stuff you used to really like, which sometimes is fine.
I would disagree with that. I feel like there was more to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I feel like Jay and Silent Bob... Now, there was a ton of fan service stuff in there. But I do kind of feel like that was the one where they were like, look, these guys get their own movie. You know what I mean? And the movie was what it would be. Because like, if you cut out the fan service, there's still...
9 minutes?
Oh, there's a lot more than 9 minutes. You know, I mean, they still do a lot that is not fan service centric in Strikes Back. You know, there's plenty of fan service, and you probably, if you cut out all the fan service, you probably wouldn't get a full, 90 minutes. But I feel like there's a lot more going on in that movie besides the fan service than this one. And in Reboot, I think you'd seriously have like 9 minutes if you cut out all the fan service.
Yeah.
I just feel like that, they had a little more. I don't know. I mean, there was, because the whole in Strikes Back, there was a lot with the diamond heist thing. There was a lot with the clit. There was a lot when Will Ferrell showed up.
Yeah.
There was a lot of them. There was the stuff with Carlin and the stuff with Princess Leia.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher.
You know what I mean? There was all these jokes.
Both of those two scenes combined for like a minute and a half.
Well, I'm not saying. I'm saying there was a lot of jokes built in there that were new jokes that were. I don't feel like there were any new jokes in Reboot.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like if you cut out the fan service of Strikes Back, you'd probably cut out, a little over a third of that movie. If you cut out the fan service in Reboot, you'd cut out 3/4 of that movie.
Yeah, I don't disagree on the Reboot part. That's about where I would put it. I would guess with Strikes Back, it'd still be much closer to half, though. Like, I was never saying that this one was. Or that this one was less fan service.
No,
I was just making that general comparison of like, I don't think Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back exists if it weren't for the fan service aspect. Now they added a bunch more stuff to it for sure, and they way more fully developed a movie around that concept on that one than this one. But I don't think we would have ever gotten that movie if it weren't for the idea of going back and revisiting a bunch of that stuff.
See, I would question that. Now, I don't know because I was never in the pitch meetings, but I feel like by the time we got to Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, there was enough movies with those guys where the pitch the
pitch meeting. Like the pitch meetings all took place in Kevin Smith's head.
Oh.
Nobody was in on those.
Well, so I mean, my memory of that time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, that was like kind of a big time for comedy, and comedy was getting a little goofier. And I feel like there was probably a market for a Jay and Silent Bob movie that wasn't like a market for, hey, remember the View Askew universe? I feel like the horse came before the cart in that one.
Yeah.
You know, like you could sell people on like, hey, Jay and Silent Bob, they're popular characters. We're going to give them their own movie. It's going to be this, you know, kind of slapstick romp across the road, slapstick Road 2 movie with these two stoners.
Yeah.
And then
Dumb
because
and Dumber with weed.
Yeah, because the studios were like, that sounds good, we'll do that. He was able to go, great, and I'm gonna slide in this in joke and that in joke and this callback and this and that. With this one, it was like, hey, I'm gonna make a callback. I'm gonna just shoot a bunch of callbacks, and maybe there'll be. I kind of have this story where Jay and Silent Bob are doing this thing.
Yeah.
I think we do a thing a lot where you and I are saying the same things, but we're doing it in an argumentative tone. Because, like, I don't think anything you just said there is necessarily full wrong, other than maybe disagreeing with a little bit of the math on the run times or anything like that. But we're coming at it like we're opposing each other. But I don't think we are.
Well, the opposition is that you're saying that Strikes Back exists to be a callback to the movies he had done before that, and Reboot exists to be a callback. And I'm saying I think Strikes Back gets made whether there are callbacks or not.
Okay.
That's what I'm disagreeing on. Okay. I think Strikes Back is its own movie with a bunch of callbacks in it.
Okay.
And Reboot is just a bunch of callbacks that is getting made into a movie.
Yeah.
Well, you're the host. So.
Well, that is certainly true about Reboot. I mean, Reboot is nothing but callbacks to stuff from the old movies and jokes for just, like, if you're a fan of Kevin Smith, if you follow him online, if you listen to his podcasts, this movie is just nothing but jokes about all that stuff. Like he puts so many inside jokes, basically, even just for like his podcast fans. Like, this is just, it's all of that to get strung together in a loose fitting storyline of sorts, just so we can get to all these jokes. I don't know. I laughed a lot at it. There were several things I thought were very funny. I appreciated the callbacks. But, you know, like, when we're thinking about it in terms of, like, movie quality itself, like, I certainly wouldn't rank this as, like, you know, Clerks 2 level of, like, a good movie.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and that's the thing. Like, I enjoyed it quite a bit. But I went into it sort of like expecting and wanting that in the first place. I could not take anyone who wasn't a fan of Kevin Smith to it because they would have no idea what they were watching.
Like this was made for people who are already fans of this stuff, who enjoyed the old stuff. Like, you have to be almost like a Kevin Smith fan. You have to be a Kevin Smith fan to enjoy this movie. Yeah. Otherwise, it's not going to matter to you at all.
Yeah, and you can't be like somebody who thought Mallrats was funny when you were 15.
Yeah,
like, that's not enough.
Yeah,
you got to know a lot more of the source material to get much out of this. Which, again, to me, that this feels like that's how it was designed in the first place. Like, this isn't like a mass market movie they're trying to make a bunch of. This is something they're taking on tour so that people who are willing to pay tickets to come see them can watch this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Like, this movie was made to watch in that setting, right? A room full of people who are already fans of Kevin Smith who get to hang out with Kevin Smith while watching this movie and then listen to him talk about it. Yeah. That is absolutely the audience this was made for. Yeah. So, and I'm it's totally fine. I'm fine with that too. There were several callback jokes that I super appreciated, especially as a fan of a lot of the old movies. Like, I don't know, I laughed real hard at the, what are you, deaf like Anne Frank? Because that's one of my favorite jokes from Clerks 2, is the whole Anne Frank part. You know, so like little things like that, just, I don't know, that makes me real happy when I get some of those jokes. Pretty much everybody from all of the View Askew universe movies pop up somewhere in this movie. You know, even as those characters, like, we saw, you know, Holden again, and we saw, gosh, I can't even remember all the names.
Banky.
Yeah,
that's the thing. This movie really starts off like shot for shot, just like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, which is part of the joke.
This movie opens with the "Goodbye Horses." I mean, like, we get the Jay totally taking his pants off, doing the the Silent of the Lambs
Buffalo
thing.
Bill.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bill thing right at the beginning of the movie. It's like, yep, here, we're just going to open. Here's what you're getting. Here's what the movie is. This is where we are.
But when it goes into, because, when Strikes Back came out, it was right at the rise of superhero movies, and the whole crux of that movie was that, the comic book that Ben Affleck and Jason Lee had made in Chasing Amy.
Yeah.
That was based off of Jay and Silent Bob.
Yeah.
Was becoming a movie, and they wanted to go stop it from being made, or at least get paid for it, or something along those lines. And now here we are, 20 years later, and the superhero things have overrun the marketplace, but now we're getting more, and we've been here for a while, I feel like, but we're getting more and more to where everything's a reboot. Everything is a redo of something old, and so now it's just sort of lampooning that. It kind of had a 21 Jump Street, 22 Jump Street vibe to me. I don't think it pulled it off nearly as well as those did, because those movies were so much better. Meta art.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But that was kind of the realm it played with there. But it goes through the same opening scenes, because it opens with, towards the opening there, like, they're just hanging out at the Quick Stop, and then they can't hang out at the Quick Stop anymore. Yeah. So then they go and find Banky, and they're hanging out with Banky, and then they find out that this movie is being made.
Yeah.
And is negatively affecting them somehow. You know? They did throw the courtroom scene in the middle of this one where they lost the rights to their own names.
Yeah. Hey, I love.
Which was pretty funny.
I love how Jason Lee's comic shop is just in that mall now, and that mall's dying. Yep. That like stuff like that. I thought was pretty great. Jason Lee's entire explanation of the difference between a remake and a reboot was fantastic.
Yes, absolutely.
That was amazing.
Absolutely. There's a few parts of this movie. Again, I enjoyed the experience overall. There's a few parts of this movie that I really thought were worth the price of admission on their own. Yeah. That was not the biggest, but the first one that I got to. Yeah. When they went through that whole conversation, I was like, all right, like I just got my $15 worth there in about 3 minutes. Everything else that happens from here on is gravy.
Well, I love when they circled back to that too later on when Jay was like, because they were in the van with the girls or whatever, because they said something like, "Don't you mean remake?" And he goes, "No, this is definitely." He's like, "This is definitely a reboot," because he was like, "We're replaced by a younger, diverse cast," and like showed all the girls. Like, it was amazing. Like telling the same story that I already love, but changing it just a little bit and filling it with a younger, more diverse cast. Like that was the explanation of what a reboot is versus a remake. It was amazing. It was so funny. Are you all wearing cat suits under your clothes?
I went through and I've rewatched a lot of the View Askew Universe movies leading up to this one. I didn't quite have enough time to get in Clerks 2 or Clerks the Animated Series, but I got most of them in through Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. I will say one of the jarring parts is I remember when Strikes Back came out, and then I think that was, I want to say that was like 2002, and I think Clerks 2 was like 2005, which at the time felt like eternity. Like Clerks 1 seemed like the oldest movie that had ever been made, and then they finally made Clerks 2, and I think part of that is because when you're 25, 10 years is a long time, and part of that is because they had been talking about Clerks 2 for 9 of those years. Yeah. Right. You know? But it seemed like that was forever as far as the time distance in between them. And now, sitting here in 2019 looking back, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back don't feel like it was a whole eternity ago by any means, except that it was 20 years. And so looking at those guys already looked older by the time Strikes Back came around.
I know, looking at them in the first Clerks is crazy.
Yeah, than they did in the first Clerks. And then making that time jump 20 years, and not just Jay and Silent Bob, like all the cameo people, all that stuff. Like, it's jarring to watch all of those movies and then skip that 20-year break and just sit down for this one like literally the next day, and you're like, whoa. Yeah. Ben Affleck looked different. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. And Kevin Smith looks the healthiest out of everybody.
Yeah. Like, he never looked nearly as fat in any of those movies as he is in my memory because of how often they call him fat. Yeah. You know, like they always refer to him as the tubby one and everything like that. And so I just have this image in my head of him being way heavier than he ever actually is. Now, also, I'm fat. So that probably plays some into it also. Because I'll look at him and go, he's not even as big as me. Oh.
I will say, like, I didn't. So there was a lot of cameos and stuff too in the movie. Chris Jericho is in the movie. that was the weakest scene in the whole movie
Yeah.
for me. I didn't quite understand what joke we were supposed to really be getting there, or like I don't know.
I think that had to be a way more flushed out idea at some point.
Yeah.
When they go through the end credits of this movie, you get a bunch of outtakes that were clearly from a different version of the movie.
Yeah.
Like you can tell from the outtakes that there are 3 or 4 different ideas that were in play when they were filming this thing.
Yeah.
And I feel like somewhere along that line, the Jericho scene had to be a lot longer, have an intro and an outro, and make any sense at all. And by the time they cut it all together, I don't know if they just didn't have time or if the beginnings and the ends didn't fit into the movie that they ended up with or what happened. But I feel like they looked at that footage and went, well, Chris Jericho came and filmed this with us. And, we've got to, there's this, one part that has to happen in here to bring these characters together a little bit. So we have to put the scene in there, but the beginning and the end don't work anymore. So we just have to sort of puke what we have into it and then run away as quick as we can.
That's sort of what, and it does happen real fast too. Yeah. It's just kind of like, what was even the purpose of?
They didn't show you how they got there. They just land there. Didn't make any sense that they were there.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like 3 things happen, they're gone, and it didn't make any sense that they got away.
It was real weird.
It was another one I was waiting for the callback. Like I was waiting. It's basically a Ku Klux Klan scene.
Yeah.
Where they've kidnapped these teenagers that Jay and Silent Bob are traveling with. Inexplicably, they just find these kids, and they happen to have been kidnapped by the Klan.
Yeah.
And then they dump a porta potty on the Klan, and they run away, and that's like the whole end of the scene.
And this
I was waiting for.
He also does the.
This is where he does the Silent Bob talking too. Like they did it with this because we always get the one scene where Silent Bob says something.
Yeah.
And this is the scene they used it on, and it wasn't even like I don't know. It was so weird
just
and dumb
played real
and
weird. Yeah.
played super.
I kept expecting the
that's-
Klan to show up later in the movie, like Jericho and a bunch of those guys to come back and play a part at the end or something. But then it never happened.
Well, he was also doing a thing. That whole speech was Alec Baldwin, the always be closing speech from
Glengarry
Glen. Yeah. It was poor. It was done badly.
Okay,
but like
so
he was totally doing a thing.
It just went way over my head. I did not get that part at all. Because the one part about it that I laughed at was when Jay went, "Oh man, it's the Klan. Those guys ruin everything." I was like that made me laugh because I was like, "That's just absurd."
But it's I guess we haven't really set up the story at all. The basics of the story is that they go to stop the reboot of their movie from being made and try to get the rights to their name back so they can be Jay and Silent Bob again. Along the way, they run into Justice from Strikes Back, and then they find out that she had Jay's baby 18 years ago and never told him, so he meets his daughter. Well, the daughter wants to go to Hollywood with them to go to the Chronicon, and a bunch of her friends tag along, but she doesn't know it's her dad, and there's all this animosity between like the young group and the 2 older guys. And so that's sort of how the traveling goes. So the lead into this scene was basically like Jay and Silent Bob get out of the van and the girls steal the van. Well, in the next scene, they grab a different car to chase them down. And when there's not any setup to where they're looking for them or how they're finding them or anything. They just pull up into this rock quarry, and the girl's van is there. And they're like, "Oh, there's the van, great!" And then they go to open the van to find the girls, and the girls aren't in the van. And then they turn around, and there's just a Klan rally happening behind them.
Yeah. And
the girls are all tied up, and they're burning a cross. And then Jay and Silent Bob go and untie them, confuse the Klan, dump a porta potty on them, and then they're just gone. So
you did. There was at some point some setup because the name of that rock quarry was Asgard.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Yeah. So they've just barely panned right past the picture for it, and I'm pretty sure it was like ASS Guard.
Yeah, Asgard.
So it probably wasn't a rock quarry. It was probably something to do with like the porta potty place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we missed why anybody knew that was there. That was why Silent Bob would know that place was there.
Yeah.
Why the girls might have picked that place to hang out, but that was kind of. I assume there was some connection there because they had just had the conversation about all this stuff they would do to Thor.
Yeah.
That at least puts a little something to it still there, but there still is no you expect the scene of well, where would they go, or this is how we're tracking them, or any setup for the girls as to why they would be there, or how and why the clan just happened to be there and happened to have them all tied up.
Yeah.
Any of that stuff is just gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
So a lot of time talking about that scene.
Yeah, I know, and really, I mean, we don't have to go even too much more into it. I want to point out too, though. I thought so like it's funny because like Kevin Smith himself is also a character in the movie because Kevin Smith is the director of the new movie, so they make tons of
Blunt Man v Chronic.
Yeah, it's Blunt Man v Chronic now, which is great, and they make lots of like jokes about Kevin Smith and all the bad movies he's made and stuff. They bring out Cop Out a lot. They bring up Tusk a lot. They call him Kevin James a whole bunch, which is a thing that he always jokes about on his podcast that happens to him all the time. So there's a lot of those kind of jokes in there, which is pretty funny stuff. When they get to the panel, and then the one like quiet girl from China that's been hanging out with them the whole time that they said was like a podcaster from China, turns out to be a Russian the whole time, and she's like just suddenly the villain.
The end was nonsense.
Dude, the end was total chaos, but when she got up on the stage and she's just like, begin collusion, and then all the Russians, that was ridiculous. That made me laugh. Yeah, so then like the Russians were the bad guy, and it was so ridiculous.
The best, I mean, they had a bunch of cameos in there from old Kevin Smith friends and characters, and then a bunch of cameos that were just famous people that showed up.
Yeah.
But then they did the Ben Affleck cameo at the end there, and that was the main one for me. That was like I'd pay $15 again right now to go watch just that scene because that hit on a couple of different levels for me because it was hilarious. It was kind of heartwarming. I know like those guys were really close friends for a long time and then weren't at all for a long time, and so there's the moment where it's Holden from Chasing Amy reuniting with Jay and Silent Bob. And it's like there's just no reason for Silent Bob to hug Holden as long as he did. So you could just tell that was just Kevin Smith and Ben Affleck, coming back together. And then all of the jokes they made, all of them had me in tears.
Dude, there was some good stuff here, but like specifically like when Ben Affleck makes the jokes about how he used to be Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
But now he's more like Thomas Wayne or his mother whose name escapes him right now. And he kind of gives that glance to the camera. Good stuff, man. Like that was just fantastic. I enjoyed the Ben Affleck scene quite a bit. That was one of my favorite parts too. It was fun. I had a lot of fun watching the movie. You just have to go into it knowing exactly what you're going to get out of it, basically.
If you've seen all those movies, you want to see this one.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen those movies,
but Jaren's on a different page.
You may not have gotten much out of it, but would you tell a Kevin Smith superfan not to watch it?
I would tell not a Kevin Smith superfan. Kevin Smith superfan, it's more Kevin Smith, so go see it. Kevin Smith casual fan, because I would consider myself a Kevin Smith casual fan, and I did not enjoy it. I don't think there's any reason to go see it. It is not. So for me, all the callbacks, like there was no. Like you guys were talking about how like the Jericho scene had no setup and it was just kind of nothing. That didn't stand out to me because I felt that way about pretty much all the scenes. It was just like it was just like. Now, having listened to you guys explain that, I don't disagree with any of that. I'm not saying like, oh no, that scene was fine. I'm just saying all the scenes, it was just like, look, here's a scene. Like you could have chopped this. You could chop this movie into YouTube videos, and they would play just fine. You don't need any scene before or after anything else that's happening.
Yeah.
All the callbacks I was not into because they weren't. I didn't even feel like they were clever callbacks. They were just like. Remember this thing? Okay. Remember this thing? Okay. Oh, remember this thing? Okay. They weren't even. It's not even like they were woven into a story being told.
Yeah.
So that did nothing for me. The very threadbare story that they tell with spoiler alert, Jay. I guess we already did Jay's daughter.
Yeah.
Like with him connecting with his daughter. I don't feel like it was as like if you want a heartfelt, it's not like I felt like this is Kevin Kevin Smith's love story to his daughter or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was just like, because there had to be some story in there, you know, they put this very threadbare thing in there. Now, let me also acknowledge very quickly, I get turned off by like the kid's got to have a father, and I don't, you know, oh, kids, this character doesn't know who they are because they don't know their father, and it's this thing that, you know, oh, they're obsessed with it, you know, like that storyline always turns me off.
Yeah.
Now, I also don't think it's a very good version of that, you know. Even if it wasn't, even if it was something I was into, this is a pretty threadbare. Like, hey, Jay has a daughter and they're at odds, but then they're not.
Yeah.
You know? So like as opposed to like Clerks 2, which was very
So good.
like there was, you know, something very genuine, and like you could tell, you know, Kevin Smith was kind of pouring out some emotion in that one, right?
Yeah.
You know, there was something behind it. I did not get that feeling from this, other than just like, hey, remember all those things I did? So I would say you can skip it. There's no reason to watch this movie unless you are a Kevin Smith super duper listen to his podcast every week. Already saw it before. Already saw this movie fan. So,
Well, Kevin Smith is my best friend. I think it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. So thumbs up for me. Hey, all those cameos in that movie and not one Elias. I was disappointed that we didn't get to see Elias anywhere.
Yeah, which I didn't even catch until you brought it up. But yeah, bummer.
I just kept hoping we'd see him somewhere.
Yeah.
He's my favorite part of Clerks 2, and I miss him. He needs to be in more things,
we
but
even
just as Elias.
well,
Did we even see Randall?
Was he with the cast
Oh,
of
he
Clerks?
was with the cast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was with the
that's
cast
right,
of Clerks
that's
when they showed it.
I was gonna say I was
Hey,
a little
Dante
surprised.
stuff, he was pretty great, and everything he popped up in that movie, he was pretty
Dante was
great.
like 4 different characters again.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was a little surprised and maybe disappointed because there was a lot of the cameos. They weren't like the characters from whatever they were in before. It was just like the actor. You know, like Rosario Dawson is the only one I can think of.
Oh, yeah,
but she
yeah.
was not the girl from Clerks.
She was not.
too.
Yeah, she
You know
wasn't
what I mean?
Dante's wife.
Well, like Dante, Dante
I mean,
showed up as Dante, and then as a newscaster, and then I swear I saw him at least one more time.
Yeah, he was in there a couple of times. At the very end, when Jay was like, "Hey, we've been putting gum in his locks for 25 years."
That was my favorite
Like
part.
Dante showed up at the very end for like that classic Clerks scene where he goes to open the lock and he's just like, ah.
Yeah, that was my favorite part.
We've been putting gum in his locks for 25 years. Yeah. Oh man, good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, we moving on from that.
I think so.
So one of the other things that Kevin Smith, of course, is doing is the Masters of the Universe series on Netflix. And we've already talked about that, but it turns out there might be some more Masters of the Universe and Netflix combining going on outside of that cartoon that was already announced. So I wanted to bring this up a little bit. One of the big news items that came out this past week, big news items in my world, I guess, is that Sony's Masters of the Universe movie that has been on again, off again for like a decade or more, is possibly no longer going to come out at theaters and might possibly be coming to Netflix as a direct-to-Netflix movie.
Now, is it still going to suck?
Oh boy, I hope
Even
it
on
does.
Netflix?
Oh man.
Like, are they going to use the same script? Or are they gonna...
They haven't said anything like that yet. So here, let me read this to you real quick. So this is from, I think this was originally reported on The Hollywood Reporter and broke out on various news outlets after that. It says, after developing Masters of the Universe films since 2007, Sony is apparently considering making the project for Netflix. The outlet reports that studio chairman Tom Rothman is in preliminary talks as Sony decides between finding a studio or finance partner for the He-Man project, or go with Netflix as a safe bet, in quotes, safe bet. If Sony selects Netflix as their distributor, the studio would follow in the footsteps of companies like Paramount, who have already explored and are currently making movies for streamers. And that's basically the end of the story. So, essentially, Sony is worried about this movie bombing as a theatrical release, and they think Netflix might be the safer bet to release this directly to streaming services.
Because when I first heard that news, that was exciting, because I was like, well, it'll probably be better on Netflix anyway. But then I don't know how to, because if the news is Sony's, developed this movie and is about to start filming, and now they're nervous about it, so they're going to send it to Netflix, and Netflix is going to take their script that was still written by David Goyer and their movie that they're already nervous about, and they're just going to happen to be the ones who push play on the camera.
Right.
Then I'm not excited anymore. But if the news is Sony's nervous, so they're just completely handing over the reins to Netflix, and Netflix can take it and do whatever they want with it, then I'm excited that maybe Netflix will do something good with it.
Yeah, I know. It really depends on which way we're going to go, because I'm hoping for the latter also. Like, I do think that this is an okay move, like moving it to Netflix, but I'm also
it's
the
not
guy.
Bad news.
No,
under either circumstance.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. But I've also been the guy in the camp this whole time of being very nervous about this movie and not thinking that there's any chance that Hollywood's going to make the He-Man movie that I want to see. Like I've kind of already been in that boat anyway. I've kind of been a little gripey about it, and I know that. But I think sending it to Netflix is not a bad move. I know from talking to folks in the biz that Netflix has tried to get this movie in the past, so it's kind of cool to see it coming back as an option. And while I don't know anything concrete, so I can't, I'm not going to give you any inside info because I don't have any inside info, but it does sound like this report is like a legit thing. From what I understand. Like, this isn't just some random report about them possibly talking to Netflix. They are really talking to Netflix about this. This is a real thing that's happening. So it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, like where this develops. But man, what a saga this is. Like I love how it says it right here. After developing a movie since 2007, like literally it's been over a decade that Sony's been trying to make this movie.
And I feel like it's been longer than that.
Yeah. It's ridiculous, man. It's just... Who knows? Who knows if this is ever going to come out?
That's a solid 12-year run of not ruining this movie yet. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. How much longer can we make it?
I mean, they can't not ruin this movie forever.
Yeah. Place your bets. Yeah. Place your bets. What do we got? Awesome. Anything else you guys had to say on that one? I just wanted to throw it out there.
I could not have less of a dog in this race.
No, yeah.
No. This movie. I mean, I like He-Man and all, but man, does none of this matter to me? Like, just make the movie or don't, guys. That's where I'm at. Like, what are we doing?
That's true. No, I get that. I totally get that. And you know what else is really weird about this too? Like, if this does actually happen, that means Netflix will have 3 separate entities for this franchise running at the same time with the DreamWorks She-Ra, the new Kevin Smith animation, and then this movie. All not related to each other, but all very much from the same franchise. That is super weird.
Yeah.
It's super weird. But, hey.
We'll see.
We'll see what happens. All right. So, one of the other things I wanted to bring up, we talked about this a little bit, so we don't have to say a whole lot much more of this other than the confirmation. But did you see that Disney Plus announced every single thing officially that's going to be on the streaming service?
I haven't gone to look at the list yet, but I've heard, I've seen the headlines and heard the reviews about all the stuff that's on there and how deep cut the selection is for a lot of old Disney stuff, which I saw a list at least a month ago because I remember looking for a couple of specific things on there that to me already, it was after the thing in Norway. Where was it? In the Netherlands.
The Netherlands.
It was after they released it there. I just saw a list of everything somebody had pulled off of what they could see there, and it was already pretty extensive. Now this sounds like it's new, so I'm guessing maybe there's more to this list.
So Disney,
but they did also release a 3+ hour commercial.
Yes, a over 3 hour commercial to show Disney every Plus. Single thing that is on the network. Isn't that insane?
Yeah. Which apparently is basically just a giant montage that just keeps going,
Yeah, so they did this on Twitter, the announcement on Twitter, and it was actually fun because I was following it as it was happening.
Oh, cool.
They just started this thread, and they just kept adding a new tweet to the thread where they were adding a new movie and they were going in date order, like movie release order. So it just kept going, and this thing it's unbelievable, man. Everything that we talked about before, like this is over 600 replies long. This thread is of them announcing movies.
Wow.
Nice.
And everything that we talked about with as far as like the Marvel stuff goes, all officially confirmed. All the Disney Afternoon stuff officially confirmed. Gargoyles,
all the Marvel
and
culture.
everything.
All the Marvel cartoons.
All the Marvel cartoons.
The MCU movies are not
Right,
in it at
but
launch, at least.
all of those cartoons that we talked about that might be on there, X-Men, Spider-Man, all the old stuff, all of it's been confirmed. All the Disney Afternoon stuff, including Gargoyles, which was one that everybody was really hoping for. But tons of Disney movies are on there too, and that's like pretty much all of the animated movies you can think about, they're there. All of their sequels
all the princess
are there.
movies and everything there?
Pretty much, I think so. Like, look, I'm like Cinderella.
That's one of the things I always wondered about is like the vault stuff that they used to release.
Okay.
So
like it starts right off like Snow White is the first thing that's on the list here, but like Snow White, Pinocchio, Swiss Family Robinson, Fantasia, The Reluctant Dragon, Dumbo, Bambi, Saludos Amigos, Three Caballeros, Fun and Fancy Free, Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Cinderella, Treasure Island, Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes, and pretty much everything you can think about, even like these smaller animated films. Like DuckTales the movie is on the list. Goof Troop the series, the Goofy movie, all that stuff's on there. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Davy Crockett. I mean, all that stuff. But they've also got like the 90s stuff, like Blank Check was on the list. Do you remember Blank Check? That was on the list. I mean,
is that the one with Paul Giamatti?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane just the stuff that's on here. I was really happy to see things like that Tron cartoon series that they tried to do after the second
Legacy.
Tron movie came out. Yeah, they did like an animated series.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
So that's on there. But yeah, also the Tron movies are on there. What's the Black Hole is on there.
Nice.
So there's a lot of like that kind of stuff that like I've always wanted to watch. That I'm going to now because now I have access to it. I've never seen the Black Hole, and that's one that I feel like I should see.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy. I was real happy to see that that's on the list because that's on my
mediocre.
I'm sure it is, but I want to know. It's like
I-
I've never seen 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I'm gonna watch that too.
I know there was a
you
string.
know?
So
There was
good.
a string of
That's a good one.
Yeah.
either Disney or Disney-esque, at least, like Kurt Russell movies and like the early 80s and stuff like that. And I think Tom Hanks had a couple too along those lines, like like Computer Wore Tennis Shoes and stuff.
That's
I was
on
gonna
there.
say,
Computer
well,
Wore Tennis Shoes is on there.
Well, Kurt Russell came out of the Disney program. He
Yep.
was like discovered
Yeah, the
and
Shaggy
trained
Dog,
and
Darby
like,
O'Gill and the Little
Well, they
People.
did a bang-up job on that one.
Yeah.
Journey to the Center of the Earth, Pollyanna, 101 Dalmatians, Absent-Minded Professor, The Parent Trap, like the old Parent Trap and the modern Parent Trap are on there. The Freaky Fridays are on
Nice.
here. I mean, like it's crazy, man. The stuff that they're releasing, it's perfect. I mean, I'm excited. I'm really excited about a lot of this stuff.
I just want to go watch that commercial.
I saw some people.
That'll be awesome for 10 minutes, and then you'll be like, ooh.
Yeah, I know,
I got a
right?
feeling it's one of those things. To me, it feels like it would be like hunting through Netflix is to me. Because of all the times I've sat there and I went, I got a solid 2 hours. I can actually find a movie to watch. And then an hour and 40 minutes later, I'm still looking down the list
for a
going,
movie.
all right, I'm going
I
to
am
bed.
so
I got a
good
feeling
there.
that commercial would be like I'd turn that on and go, I just want to watch this for a couple minutes. And 2 hours and 45 minutes later, I'd go, I'll just finish it at this point.
Maybe so.
I was gonna say one of my friends.
That would not happen to me. I'll get 9 minutes in and be like, ooh, there's 3 more hours of this. I'm out.
I saw one of my friends, Andre, who does a YouTube channel, Black Nerd Comedy, tweeted out earlier. He's like, I'm gonna stream myself watching all 3 hours of this thing. Come join me, everybody. Let's see if I can get through it. Like he was like making it like a stream thing. I thought that was hilarious.
That's awesome.
I was like, that's how you do it right there. You hang out with a bunch of people online and you stream.
Was he reacting to every new
Yeah,
part of the
probably.
montage?
That's it. That's what you got. Oh my god, 'cause I would be dead at the end of 3 hours reacting to every single thing that pops up on a montage. Cool. All right. What else? Was there something else that we wanted to bring up specifically news wise?
I was trying to follow the live tweets of the XFL Draft earlier today.
Oh,
but
boy.
As it turns out, I don't know any of those people.
I was so all right. The XFL. Now, I didn't follow the XFL the first time around. I just know that was Vince McMahon's football,
Yeah.
and that they tried to do there wasn't like quite the same kind of rules, or there were no rules,
well,
or it was I don't know.
Just-
the only
threw a
rules.
ball on the field.
Yeah, the only rules. There's
And
no
let-
rules.
Let seven gladiators from each team run out.
That sounds amazing.
It is equally as funny how wrong that is as how right that is.
Yeah,
Because that is how part of it felt. Like I remember the very first, because they weren't going to do coin tosses.
No coin tosses.
So what they did is they basically just put a football like midfield, and they had two guys, one guy from each team start at the 20-yard line, and then just rush the ball. It's like playing dodgeball. Whoever gets to it first gets it.
Amazing.
And that's how you win the coin toss. And one of the best players on one of the teams on the first ever XFL game, right at what would be the coin toss moment there, rushes down the field, jumps on this ball, and immediately hurts himself and is out for the season.
Yep. What was the other big one? No fair catch was the other big one, right?
Yeah, there was no fair catch. Yeah.
Right. The thing that gets me, the XFL the first time was gonna be edgy and dangerous and so much more exciting, and this time it's the family friendly option. Like, it is totally 180.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
sure.
like, it felt like they were presenting this more like just this is a real sports thing now.
Well, it's
like, it didn't feel that way the first time around, even if it was. It didn't feel that way.
Well, like, they weren't.
It was the Attitude Era football.
It was Attitude Era football. Like, they weren't gonna penalize.
Good way to put it.
They weren't gonna penalize celebration, right?
Yeah.
Like they wanted the guys to celebrate
Well,
as
they
much
let
as
everybody
possible.
put whatever they wanted on the back of their jersey, so you didn't have to put your name back there.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
He hate me.
He hate me was back there.
And didn't they also do like skits where they tried to get into the cheerleaders' dressing room and stuff like that on the
they
show?
Did some stuff towards
They
that.
very WWF
just
90s.
Fairly recently,
Yeah.
I've watched 30 for 30 on the original XFL, which was very interesting. Like, I was already interested going in, and it was better than I thought it was going to be. And I've listened to a Bruce Pritchard podcast where they talked about it.
I saw that he did that. I haven't.
Yeah, like, I heard some interesting stories from that stuff.
Yeah. Well, that was like a companion piece of the 30-30.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. But like, I did not realize until that 30 for 30 how close of friends Vince McMahon and Dick Ebersol were, or how big of a part Ebersol had in WWE programming or WWF programming for a long time. I knew they had partnerships with NBC on stuff, but I didn't realize he was like in the back room helping them produce a lot of stuff for a while there. And so there was a lot going for the original run of the XFL, but it was also such a hashed together idea. Like, it was the definition of boom or bust. It was either going to make it or it was going to burn hard.
In the first 2 weeks.
It did the second thing.
Yep.
Now, they didn't make it through their entire season,
Wow.
which was like 10 games. And
But didn't they stop
championship
putting it on
thing.
TV and stuff?
It was. But I mean, that was decided the first 2 or 3, like within the first month.
Yeah.
That did not. They played a full season.
They also ran
that
into
was
several
not.
like technical problems too, where it's like, I mean, they weren't on the verge of making it by any means, but there's also a lot of things that went wrong that didn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, just a lot of weird stuff. But there just wasn't. It always amazes me when you hear behind the scenes stories about something like that, how little actual prep there is to it.
Yeah.
You know, like, because a lot of that stuff, I mean, a lot of that stuff is hashed out ahead of time, but a lot of time they would show up and it's like, all right, I guess we're going to put on a football game tonight. Let's figure it out. You know, and you're like, good. I feel like you should have done this a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
You know? But it's also amazing to me how much, because I didn't watch NFL football until 10 years after that thing had came and went. So I didn't have a picture in my mind of what NFL football used to look like. But like now they have these sky cams that are just over the field on wires, basically, that can go over the entire distance. And they have these, guys running around with sideline cams that can get right into stuff. They didn't have any of that stuff back in the day. The XFL invented all of that, or at least a good deal of it. Now the NFL perfected it.
Yeah.
Like, they picked up those ideas and made their presentation way better. But it's funny to me to think of how basic NFL games used to look before McMahon came and everybody made fun of him for his terrible football league. But then they picked up all of his ideas and made their stuff way, way better from it.
Yeah.
This time coming around, I don't expect a revolution in football.
Yeah.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. because it's funny to me. But they do. I mean, they got better TV deals coming in this time around. They've got more planning put into place coming this time around. They have been working on this for a solid 2+ years. Mm-hmm. Now, we did just see, like, they announced the XFL was coming back, like, in 2017 or 18, I think. And then right after they announced that, another group came along and were like, we're going to do another football league, too, and we're doing it first. So they announced it after and then debuted it first, and it tanked immediately and was just an abysmal disaster last season. But the XFL is still pushing forward with its thing. I don't know if this is going to be around in 2 years or not. I don't picture Vince McMahon failing as hard as he did the first time, 2 times, you know?
Man,
like, I don't feel like he would do it unless he knew more going into it this time or had a little bit more. I mean, there's no guarantees on anything.
But
now, however, he's also older and he's got way more money to burn than he did before. So this could be another stab in the dark of him going, man, let me give it one more shot. You know, and it might last 3 weeks. I don't know.
Well, they're pushing the family-friendly thing so hard. And, like, aren't they even talking about, like, player conduct,
I don't know
contracts and stuff like that. Because well, the thing I've heard is you know, we're not going to have criminals, and if you know, our players are going to be, you're going to know that they're good people type stuff. You know, like they're pushing that real hard. Last time I heard stuff about the XFL, they were pushing that real hard.
And I don't know how.
Just saying that. Seems a little weird coming from a wrestling promoter.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, I don't know how it affects the on-field stuff as far as like celebrations or penalties or any of that stuff, but definitely on the like player conduct part, because they did announce pretty early. I don't think it's any conviction at all, but at least like felony convictions will, like, you can't come back. You won't be allowed in the league if you are a convicted felon or something along those lines. You know? So they're playing against, because you get all those stories in the NFL where it's like, oh, this guy's been, accused of domestic violence, but he's still playing next week, and then like, oh, now here's the videotape of the domestic violence. Okay, well now we'll
suspend him for 2 games.
Weeks, and so like one of their pushes is like, none of that if you are mixed up and stuff like that. And I remember even fairly recently, I cannot remember who or if he is a felon or just one of those guys that seems to carry baggage with him or what, but like somebody got cut from an NFL team or the NFL in general or something along those lines, and the XFL immediately tweeted out, for the record, we have no interest in this guy. Because every time somebody leaves a team, immediately it's like, well, he's either going to show up in Canada or now, XFL or whatever, any week now. And the XFL was like, nope, not here.
Not here. Oh, that's crazy.
So, it'll be real interesting to see. My guess is pass or fail, it won't be much of a splash right away, regardless.
Right.
I think it'll be looked at as an overwhelming success if they get a second season. So I think that's probably kind of the goal, is like, let's not do anything too fancy this time around. Let's just survive and see what happens. But it'll be interesting to find out. But as of right now, it's just a big bunch of names that I've never heard of from schools that sound made up. So
schools that sound made up.
But it'll be interesting if you're into sports or wrestling at all.
I will probably just be watching from the sidelines, pun intended.
Ba-dum-bum.
All right. So one of the things that we haven't really talked, I think we had maybe we didn't have a podcast before this came out, but it came out right after the last time we recorded. I haven't seen this yet, but you guys got a chance to see the new Joker movie, and I've seen there's been a ton of buzz about this movie online. It seems mostly positive, but a lot of people are talking about this movie, and I know you guys probably want to talk about it. I still plan to go see it. Should I duck out of this conversation for a little bit? Are you guys going to spoil a bunch of stuff? Or
we don't have to. It doesn't feel to me like it's really a movie you can spoil too much of. I don't remember any huge revelations that would have ruined the movie for me. It's more in style and tone, and presentation. However, if you want to duck out for a few minutes, it's not going to hurt anything either. So it's totally up to you.
I think I am going to do that just because I want to go into it totally clean. I've tried to avoid everything online about it other than just general chit chat and everything. I don't know when I'm going to get a chance to see it, but I want to see it.
When we're done, we'll scream into the microphones as loud as we can to let you know to come back
or
in.
you can just text me or something. I'll just go in the other room with my phone. So I'll be right back, guys, and these guys are going to talk about Joker.
Is he gone?
I think he's gone. So Dan is the worst at podcasting, right?
Took the words right out of my mouth. Probably not the worst. I am the worst right now.
Yeah, are you dying? What's happening right now?
Involves talking.
Apparently, I'm just going to talk about Joker. So I saw Joker.
Smart.
And,
Smart.
Joker.
Yeah, can he still hear us? I can't even tell.
I'm sure they can still hear us. So, John.
Yeah.
The news on Joker. I feel like there's two camps on Joker.
Yeah.
There's people that love it, and they seem to be all like industry people, right? Like everybody who likes movies loves the movie.
Dan even mentioned like all the positive buzz going in. I don't know how to read the buzz on this movie because before it actually hit theaters, when it was making the like festival runs and all that stuff, all of the critical buzz was through the roof. This was the best movie of the year. This was an Oscar contender right away. Everyone was adored it. And then I feel like right the week that it got released, right as the full range of critical reviews is coming out, right before the people actually get to go see it, all of a sudden a bunch of critics just started panning it pretty hard. And
there seems to have been like you said, like it was pretty critically acclaimed and everybody liked it at the festivals and everything. But then when it came out, the media decided that it's the worst thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's getting a lot of that, this is going to, cause imitators and,
it's going to incite violence.
I heard somebody call it what'd they call it? An incel handbook? I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what an incel is. I don't know why.
This isn't a guidebook for. I don't even know what that phrase means. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the weird thing because like I feel like you're right. Like it's like the media turned on it and didn't tell the critics ahead of time or whatever.
Yep.
You know.
Except for the few they own.
Well, yeah. Probably more than a few. But it got some flack because of the violence aspect, and it got some flack because of the potential for like mass incidents. Because there were like the theater in Aurora where the shooting took place at the Dark Knight didn't even play it, and there was concern that there were going to be copycat shooters throughout other movies, which I don't exactly know how that news came together. Like it's a sensitive subject, so I don't want to be like, all these people are stupid. I just don't fully understand. I mean, other than the Batman connection, that this movie doesn't have a Batman. The last movie wasn't a Joker movie. There's been other Batman movies since then. Now, this one does have a darker subject matter that goes along those lines, but I didn't hear of any actual threats or anything like that. I just heard everybody was kind of ramping up security, which made sense. And they did that, and then there weren't any incidences, but I don't know why that made a bunch of news outlets that haven't seen it turn against it when all the critics had liked it ahead of time. I don't know what the inciting incident was that made that happen.
Yeah.
It just all seemed to like everything just switched one day.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it I feel like to me, like, I mean, the switch was pretty clear like when it came out. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I guess I kind of assumed that like people had seen it at that point and they were like, well, this is an easy target. But who knows? Yeah. So let's talk about the movie.
Okay. I'm 2 weeks from having seen this thing, and I'm still sort of processing it. I expected it to be my least favorite movie of the year. Definitely isn't that.
Yeah.
I don't know that I exactly fall into the camp of having really liked it either. It was exactly what I would have wanted a Joker origin story to be, in that it didn't tie into anything that I would know of as a Batman story exactly. Like, it had all the similar characters, but I kept expecting it to like lead into something that I've seen before. Like they'd have the connection between that and the
oh
veil.
look, this is the
something along those lines, and it really treated itself as its own thing. And I can objectively view it as a movie that is basically just an Elseworld story where, as far as I'm concerned, Batman doesn't ever even have to exist in this universe.
Yeah.
This can just be this story. And on that level, there are parts I liked and parts I didn't like.
Right.
It was better made than I would have given it credit for, but I still don't necessarily know that I liked exactly where it went.
Yeah.
It was very well acted. Joaquin Phoenix was very good. I don't know that anybody else particularly stood out to me. And there were ideas that I thought were neat in association with a Joker character that doesn't matter to me. That's the best way I can say it.
Okay.
Like, one of the deals when they start setting up the character and they start setting up his his mental background, and he has had some sort of traumatic brain injury that has led him to have this condition where he laughs when he's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that in my Joker that's fighting Batman in my comic book movie.
Right.
But that's a very interesting take on a Joker type character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like that idea. I don't need to see that ever again.
Yeah.
But that was interesting and neat.
Yep.
Doesn't make the movie great, but that's just like an example of one of those things where it's like, oh, I like that conceptually, but I'm not sold on this as, I don't know, it's such a weird thing for me because I really like that character so much, but I like that character in the comic book movies, in its association with Batman, in all of that stuff. And so I have to basically try to look at this movie in a way where I rip all of that stuff out and just watch this for what it is. And so on the one hand, no, I didn't hate it, and I really expected it to. On the other hand, man, I got to work really hard to even accept this movie as a movie, and I shouldn't have to work this hard at my entertainment.
Yeah, that's the thing, and we talked before we went in, and I told you I really did not want to like this movie.
Yeah.
I tried to watch it pretty objectively, and I think I succeeded in that. Because all the reasons that I didn't like this movie are not the reasons I assumed I was going to not like this movie. So that's I 2 weeks removed, the night of, we talked a lot about it. And I wasn't sure how I felt about the movie. Doing a lot of, as I considered it and let it, marinate in my brain and turn things over, I've decided that I don't like the movie. It is not a bad watch. You know what I mean? It's not a bad movie to watch, but I don't like it. And a big part of it is like you said, I have to start stripping things away in order to watch that movie. And am I opposed to them making new Jokers and different origins and different stories like that? No, I'm not. But you're tackling a character that comes with baggage.
Yes.
So you don't get to make that movie and then be like, well, you can't look at it that way. No, you made a movie about the Joker. I don't like that Joker.
Yeah.
That's it. You know what I mean? I don't like the portrayal. I want to bring up, I don't like the idea of portraying a man with mental illness going on a murder spree. I thought that I was going to dislike the Taxi Driver version of the Joker. I didn't, the way they worked that in, I didn't have a problem with any of the, society attacks him and let him down, and society pushed him to this.
Yeah.
Where they worked those ideas in didn't bother me. As much, they really didn't bother me. But I don't like, I don't want the Joker who is I spend most of that movie feeling bad for him, and that's not what I want in my Joker.
For sure.
What I mean?
And that's
he's not a dangerous psychopath. He's not, you know, he's just like for most of the movie, he's just this guy being, you know, falling apart and failing to deal with his mental illness. And it's like, you know, I don't want to see this guy go on a murder spree. I want to see somebody get this guy some help.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the movie they wanted to make. Maybe I don't want that movie to star the Joker.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's
You know?
like one of my things, like, because if I look at this as, you know, a new version of Taxi Driver, it plays pretty well. If I look at it as an expose on, you know, mental health in general, it doesn't play very well at all. If you look at it in all of these ways, you can pull different things out of it. And in and of itself, the fact that I sat there for 2 hours, didn't hate it, you know, was entertained, I guess. But like, I there are 4 or 5 different versions of what that movie is in my head right now. And in and of itself, that's kind of interesting to me. You know what I mean? Like the fact that I'm still thinking about it and still haven't made a decision on some of those things.
Right.
There is merit to the watchability there. So like you said, like it's not a bad watch because you can get things out of it, but I still like none of those movies do I love.
Right.
You know, a couple of them I hate.
Yeah.
And a couple of them I'm fine with, and a couple of them are pretty interesting. But it's amazing to me that I can pull that many things out of one movie. And now part of it is the baggage of the character, part of it is the baggage I brought in, and part of it is the baggage of the movie itself. And they blend together real weird. There's a lot of that. I don't have a huge problem with the... I don't like the portrayal in the sense that, you know, mentally ill people are a pack of pills away from becoming mass murderers.
Right.
I don't mind it in the story of like this, you know, that's how this guy got to where he is. But the way they play some of the images he has, I don't know what parts of that movie were real and what weren't.
Yeah.
Because some of the things I really dislike are like when it gets to the end, basically they're, you know, we're in spoiler territory, I think everybody knows. He goes on live television and murders this talk show host, played by Robert De Niro. And then when they are taking him to jail afterwards, there's riots in the street. Everybody's dressed up as a clown because he's like this folk hero.
Yeah. Well, he had already gained that recognition for killing those guys on the subway.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's this notoriety of this clown killer and how the clown killer is fighting back against the system, and all of the, you know, the downtrodden in Gotham are rising up and taking
poor against the rich.
Clown masks and
exactly.
Going through that level. And so like when as he's getting driven by the police away, there's an accident, and then the masses pull him out and are basically cheering him and revering him as this hero. And man, I don't like that at all. Except also, I don't know if any of that really happened. Like even in the movie, because there's long sections of this movie. I mean, there's a pseudo love story in the middle of the movie that I think they mean it as a reveal.
Yeah.
Where none of it actually happened, except you already know for full well none of it was really happening. There's like, you know, he does a comedy set that, you know, starts off awkward and then ends up, you know, getting some positive reactions and stuff like that. That's all in his head. All of his reactions are terrible because his jokes are terrible because he can't get them out. So there's a lot of things that kind of happen in this movie that then you find out didn't really happen at all. And so when I look at that end, because I know like walking out, the end made me super uncomfortable because I'm like, even in a Joker movie that is just its own thing, just about the Joker, I don't want him being the hero, you know, or the thing that the people, you know, build up as a, you know, a focal point or a savior or anything along those lines. But then when I think about it more and I go, but I don't know that they did any of that stuff. I mean, for all I know, he killed Robert De Niro and then went straight to the asylum, you know? Or also, maybe he didn't even kill Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure what did and didn't happen when it gets to that point. So,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I feel like a lot of that stuff had to have really happened. Otherwise, there's especially no point to that movie. You know, like man, if none of that happened, then that movie was was just us in his delusion.
Well,
that's pretty. I'm pretty mad about that.
I would say, like, I mean, I think the De Niro part's a stretch. I think that happened. I think most of the personal deaths, they make allusion to him killing the would-be girlfriend. That probably happened.
Yeah.
They show him killing his mother. That
right.
I'm sure happened. The riot part, I'm real mixed on. I would have a feeling that at least the sort of riot itself was probably going on. I don't know that there was a moment that he got pulled out and held up above the crowd, because they just kind of cut from that to him being in the asylum,
Yeah.
And so I kind of think maybe that part at least, like, because all the things that are in his head are him winning and him being a hero of some sort or a center point, a focal point of some sort. He's performing well in front of a crowd. He's gaining the attention of a girl. Robert De Niro is treating him as a son. All these things that are focused on him turn out to not be real.
Right.
So I kind of feel like maybe this one where they pull him from the wreckage and they're all cheering him maybe isn't either.
Yeah, but I think but when he did bad stuff, he got the recognition. You know what I mean? All the stuff that was delusional was when he was trying to do the right thing. When he does bad things, he gets the recognition that he craves. Yeah. When he murders the guys on the bus, then he gets that. Even when he's at work and some of the guys are kind of picking on him, when he ignores them, when he just kind of laughs along and pretends that, oh yeah, it's funny that you're making fun of me, he walks in, gets reprimanded by his boss. When he kind of tells everybody, where to stick it, they kind of respect him, and some of his friends come to check on him type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like when he's doing the wrong thing, he's getting the recognition that he deserves. So I kind of feel like that movie has to, like the part where he's held up at the end after killing who is essentially Johnny Carson, right, in that universe, shoots him on live television.
A jerk Johnny Carson.
Well, total jerk.
And everyone in this movie's a jerk.
Yeah, yep. There's no, except for
the neighbor.
Yeah, the neighbor,
the would-be love interest.
Yeah. And what's her name? Because I like her a lot.
Zazie
Beetz. Yeah, from the Creed movies. She's great, and she's the only good redeemable person in the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe because we don't even get to know her, because everything we know about her turns out to be delusional.
Yeah. Also true.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's kind of the thing. So like I feel like that has to be, like, that needs to be real at the end, not his delusion. And that's kind of the only thing I find interesting about the movie is like that juxtaposition. You know what I mean? And because there is a lot, we're kind of starting to see a lot play out, and like the cultural inequality, not cultural, socioeconomic inequality, right? But we still have so many like heroes that are like rich men. You know what I mean? Batman, super billionaire. Tony Stark, super billionaire.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like the only thing about this movie that is kind of interesting to me in the end is the idea of switching that, and because we do kind of get, we don't get Batman or Bruce Wayne being a jerk rich guy, but we do get Thomas Wayne being a jerk rich guy through the whole thing,
which was an interesting departure too, because most of the time when you have the Thomas Wayne memory in most Batman stories is this very benevolent person that did a lot for the city, and the city appreciated him and whatever, and the Thomas Wayne in this movie is just an absolute jerk. Runs down the city inhabitants, calls them all clowns, stuff like that. Is irredeemable. Like the couple of personal interactions he has, he's somewhere between, a distasteful person to run into and the absolute worst.
Right.
And some of that runs the gamut of seeing him from the Joker's perspective, and the storyline they go through, which is another thing I thought was an interesting take that, you know, like I don't love it. I was like, I'm not like, oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I was like, neat, because they run this part where the Joker's mother has convinced herself that she is had an affair with Thomas Wayne, and that her son is actually Thomas Wayne's son.
Right.
So you get this kind of dichotomy of like, oh, so he's really Batman's brother.
Yep.
Which in a Batman movie, I would get up and leave. You know? But in this weird Elseworlds thing, it's another one of those where I go, I don't love that, but interesting.
Yeah.
And I like it a little bit more when they turn around and make you pretty sure that none of it is true because his mother was delusional also.
No, they pretty explicitly, because he finds that paperwork that says he was adopted. He finds his adoption paperwork.
Yeah.
So
but I thought they said, because they show a picture at one point also that's like to his mother that's like signed like TW or something like that.
Well, she did work there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That she did work. I took it as, because he goes to he goes and confronts Wayne, and Wayne's like, yeah, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
You were adopted. Your mom was crazy, and we had to fire her because she was abusing you and letting the boyfriend do whatever. And he goes to the asylum and steals her paperwork and finds his adoption paperwork.
And I took it as one of those things where like it was like it was all delusional on her part, but there was just that like 1% sliver of a door left open.
Maybe.
You know, yeah.
I don't remember the door you're talking about.
that picture, basically.
Okay.
You
Well,
know?
I don't remember the scene with that picture where it was, the context of it. So
yeah. So I forgot where we were leading up with. Oh, we were just talking about Thomas Wayne being such a jerk.
Yeah. Well, I was saying like seeing that dichotomy switch to where like, okay, you know, if we're gonna switch and look at the 1% as the bad guys, that makes the Joker, sort of this cult hero that Batman always would have become. Like seeing that play out opposite to what we expect is kind of like, I kind of see that as like the only interesting thing in the movie.
Yeah.
Overall. So like I'm not interested in all the rest of that.
Yeah. And I don't ever want to see a sequel to it. I don't ever want to see Batman in this universe.
Yeah.
I don't want any of that. At the end of the day, for a movie, I expected it to be the stupidest thing I had seen. What was the last DC movie that came out?
I think I liked the last one. Yeah, Aquaman was good.
So,
Wonder Woman was good.
Well, in a movie that I expected to be the stupidest thing I had seen in quite a while, and downright unwatchable.
Yeah,
I got through watching it, and I left with some interesting thoughts. I don't know if that's a positive review exactly. I don't feel like I really like this movie. I do feel like I didn't dislike it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still caught in kind of the middle. So I would say, I can't recommend it as a must-watch by any means if you're into comic book movies in general or DC characters, or you just want something that you can sit back and dissect.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth watching. I will say, like, I know I've seen, I think it was Todd Phillips saying something about, like, this was his chance to, like, turn a comic book movie, like, sideways on its head or something like that.
sneak a real movie into comic book movie.
It's not that.
It's not that. It is
basically
not that.
what it is. It's like 2 or 3 different distinct things that you've already seen before meshed into one that doesn't exactly work.
Right.
But could have been worse, I guess.
Well, it is well made, I feel like, so it's not a slog to watch. And it is interesting. It is a movie that could make you think. But it just comes up a little short on everything that it wants to be, everything that it could be.
Yeah.
If it's and you kind of hit on this, so I'm just kind of wrapping us up, I guess. If it's a comic book movie, it's not a comic book movie, and it's not a good comic book movie.
Yeah.
If it's a taxi driver fighting back against corrupt, disappointing society or whatever, right? It's not a very good that movie. If it's an expose on mental illness and, the system of, how the system of mental illness lets people down, it is not a good movie for that movie. It fails on everything that it could be pretty completely, like as a whole, maybe it'll make you think. And if you want to spend 2 weeks deciding whether or not you like a movie, must see. If you want to go and have an experience, you can probably find something better regardless of what experience you're looking for.
Yeah, and I think that's it. If you've got to see anything that's got the Joker in it, you could have done worse with this movie. But
I don't know. I guess. I don't know. I don't feel like it delivers well on the Joker either. I don't think. Well, I don't think a lot it'll be nobody's favorite version of the Joker ever.
Yeah.
And you know what? Hot take. I don't think Joaquin Phoenix did all that great. I don't think his acting was.
I thought he did very well.
I think he did perfectly adequate. I don't think it was anything revelatory. I won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would definitely give him props coming out, but I mean that's not a that's a subjective argument we could go on for 45 minutes and bore everyone. But I would definitely I would give him praise. I would give Todd Phillips praise for crafting a well-made movie, but it just, like I said, it doesn't work on enough levels to matter. Now, again, having said that. And part of the reason I like it as much as I do, which doesn't feel like the right way to say that, dislike it as little as I do, however you would say that.
Yeah.
My expectations could not have been. My expectations were Rob Zombie Halloween low.
Ooh.
Like, they were down there. And it is a billion times better than that. But that still doesn't pull it into the realm of
being
great,
good,
by any means. So, but man, real interesting. And if you guys have any opinions on those scenes we brought up, how you think it
comment
went
below.
down.
Let us know what you think.
Yeah, whether or not Joaquin Phoenix did any good or not, whether or not any of it really happened or it was all in his head. Any of that stuff. Let us know your thoughts. Don't tag Danny in them because he hasn't seen it yet. So, what's our next topic while we're waiting for...
I don't know. Is Danny coming back?
Oh, there he is. We found him.
Is.
Did you hear it all?
Did you just hear everything anyway? Did you put headphones
How's it
on?
going, guys?
Welcome back.
Hope you didn't talk about how bad at podcasting I am.
No, we never even came up.
Oh, that's good. Good. That's good. That's good.
Why would that even...
I don't know. It's a fear of mine. Every time I leave a room, I'm like, I hope people don't think I'm bad at podcasting.
Do you worry that, even when you're
not
just
all the time?
Yeah,
just all the time.
When you walk out of your boss's office at work.
Yeah.
I hope she doesn't think I'm bad at podcasting.
I always, I assume I'm fine at it because you guys keep letting me come back. But then I think maybe I just make you guys look good.
You'll never know.
Has he never seen the edited version where I slice out all his?
You're not actually in the final cut of any podcast, John.
I shift the camera so it's just me and Danny, and then I cut.
That would be an intense amount of work to do every single time to cut John completely out of the show every time.
Well, no, I wanted to call BS on that, but I don't watch it.
He has no proof that we don't do that. Awesome. Well, before we close things out for the day, did we want to talk a little bit about the Genesis Mini? We brought that up on the last episode. So, we should talk.
You borrowed mine for the whole weekend.
All of our geek users are...
while you were borrowing my kid.
Yes, I was going to say, I borrowed your kid for the weekend. The Genesis came with him. All right, cool. Well, where do you guys want to start? I didn't get a ton of time with it, but I watched it a lot. I watched a lot of video games. It was cool. The kids were playing it all weekend long, which was real fun to watch them experience a lot of those old games. So I got to see a lot of what the system has to offer, which was really cool. And I got to really go through and show them what games would be good for 2 players a lot. So they played a whole bunch of Streets of Rage games, which was real fun to watch them play the Streets of Rage games. Because I don't think Connor had turned that one on yet.
No, he hadn't before.
So he was like, "Oh, I hadn't seen this one yet." When I showed it to him, and I was like, "You guys can play this one at the same time. It's perfect."
And he's been all about it since.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's right. Because they
Love
played
that
that.
game.
They played that a lot while they were here. I think it was 2 is the one that they really like, Streets of Rage 2, which I think is the one that like most people consider like the best of the series.
That's the only one on there.
That's the only one on there.
Oh, it is the only one on there.
so-
Okay. All right. Well, that would make
and
sense.
It's far
then.
and away the best of the series.
Yeah, yeah. So they played that a whole bunch, and that was real fun to watch them play. Over the weekend, I also got the Ninja Turtles arcade 1-up machine.
Nice.
Which is awesome on its own. So I got to put that together and play it. But it was really funny because at one point, the kids asked if they could play that. So I let them play that, and then I started playing the Genesis finally, because that was literally like the only time I had an in to like get on the system and start playing it. So the first thing I did on there, the only thing I really played is I went straight to Mega Man: The Wily Wars, just because I have never played it and I wanted to see it. I wanted to play Mega Man on a Genesis system since I'm a big fan of those games. And we talked about that a little bit on here before, but essentially it's like a 16-bit remake of Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, and then if you beat all 3 of them, there's like extra new stuff on there. Like there's a whole new game or something on there. So I went ahead and started with just Mega Man 1 and played through not all the bosses, but I got through most of the bosses on there. It is quite a different experience.
Yeah.
Playing with the Genesis controller feels weird for a Mega Man game,
sure.
and the controls are not as tight. They're definitely a little wonky, and don't quite like Mega Man is a series of games that is very heavy on platforming, and it requires like very tight controls to be able to do the platforming that's required in those games, and those controls just don't work as good on this Genesis version as the NES games that I'm used to picking up and just playing at any time. So it's almost like you have to adjust to the way this controller feels and the way your character moves. So it's a little weird because like you go into this game that is clearly a game that you know how to play, that you've done a million times, but then things aren't quite working the way you want them to work. So it's like you have to learn it a different way to get through it, and that's kind of what I was struggling with on there. Also, I noticed that some of the bosses felt like they were a little more complicated. I think the only one I can specifically speak to is Cutman, because Cutman is one that he's weak to Gutsman's powers because he's got the 2 blocks in the room that you can just pick him and throw at him. But he's always been one that I can just go to right away as Mega Man and plow through him no problem because he's pretty weak to the regular Mega Buster. But in the Genesis game, it took like way more hits to take him down with the regular Mega Buster. Like it actually took me a lot of tries. So they've definitely tweaked some things and they're a little bit different. And it's crazy how in depth I'm getting on a Mega Man game review right now. But I think it looks really cool to see those games remade in 16-bit graphics. The music sounds really awesome through like the Genesis sound chip. I thought that was really cool, like hearing a different version of those classic level themes. So I actually had a lot of fun with it, and I'm really looking forward to like getting the system myself and like trying to plow through that game entirely because I want to beat that one all the way, and I want to see the extra stuff that's on there. So it was fun.
I didn't readily notice as big a control difficulty as you did. I played the Mega Mans for a little while for the same reason. I just kind of wanted to run through them. And Connor's played them quite a bit, but I don't think he would notice the
No, I don't think so either.
In the first place. Mostly what I've played thus far has been Sonic, and those controls are left, right, down, anyway. So like there's not a lot of that, but I've really enjoyed kind of going back through that game on there. I've also gotten been playing Streets of Rage with him since he's come home back home with it, and went through some Altered Beast right away.
Oh, heck
one of the first things I remember from the
Altered Beast
Sega systems was Altered Beast, and so that's been fun. And I know the kids have played those Mickey games.
They were playing that one
also.
Such a bad game.
You don't like the Castle of Illusion game and everything, really?
I had never played them. I don't think. I thought I had until I saw them being played. And I was like, I don't remember. Like I remember the boxes vividly, but I don't remember that gameplay like that much at all. But they look like fairly standard platformers. They look fun enough, but
fairly standard. I don't enjoy them. I feel.
Spinball.
Sonic Spinball. Connor was playing that a little bit too.
Hey, how bad is that Tetris? Have you played that Tetris? Such a bad version of Tetris. Yeah.
The one that was never actually released.
Yeah, I can see why it was never released.
I don't understand how you make a bad version of Tetris, but
play it. It's tough to explain.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to.
So I also have this other experience because I got on and started mine, and I was just going to play through each game a little bit, like I just started at the top of the menu and just started playing through. And we talked on the podcast how my favorite game is Earthworm Jim.
Yeah.
How much I was looking forward to having Earthworm Jim again and being able to play it.
Yeah.
I've not started it yet.
Oh, yeah?
So there's two things going on. You mentioned the controls not feeling tight. And I have felt that way with all the games.
Really?
I've definitely feel now. I can't decide if that is because the controls are loose, or if it's just been so long since I played a Genesis, I forgot what the controls are like.
I think there might be a little bit of both going on there, honestly. So I was not a Sega kid. Right. I was a Nintendo kid. I have always felt like the Genesis controls felt a little slippery compared to the NES controls. Now, obviously, that varies by game because not every Nintendo game has tight controls either. But like usually the Nintendo-made ones specifically always feel real good, and a lot of the Capcom ones always felt real good. I always felt that Genesis controller itself felt weird to me, and some of the controls did. I know a lot of people that grew up as Sega kids probably feel differently.
See, because I was a Sega kid,
and
the instant I put my hands on that one, was like, I'm home.
I know,
because it's not even the one, because I have, you got me the other one of the
At Games one,
At Games Mini.
Yeah,
that is not a Genesis controller.
Right.
It is like it's got the 6 buttons and it's it's almost Genesis controller. It's not a Genesis controller. This was a 3-button D-pad, Genesis controller. And the instant I touched it, I was like, I'm 14 again.
Oh, that's good. That's cool. And I've seen a lot of people say that. And I will say that like this controller itself feels good. Like it feels like a legitimate Sega Genesis controller.
Yep.
So that part of it, I totally would get. And if I grew up with that controller, I would feel differently about it. But I've always kind of felt that way about the Genesis controller anyway, just because I don't think I played it a whole lot as a kid. The only time I experienced the Genesis really as a kid was my cousin had a Sega Genesis. So anytime I was over at his house, I would want to turn on Aladdin over there and play his version of Aladdin.
Such a good game.
And it's different than the Super Nintendo one. They're two completely different games. So I had the Super Nintendo and I wanted to play his version of Aladdin because you had a sword in that game and I wanted to use the sword, stuff like that. Or I remember him having Sonic 3D Blast and I remember liking that quite a bit over there. So I didn't play it a whole lot aside from when I was visiting him. So most of my experience with the Sega Genesis is as an adult retro game collector and having that stuff now. So I have a bit of a different perspective on it, I guess. However, as far as the lag goes, I have seen reports that there is a little bit of a lag that isn't present in the original hardware. And that's one of those things that is really tough to, when you're playing with ROMs and stuff like that, it's hard to completely eliminate lag. There's always going to be a little bit of that there. And I don't think it's really bad, and it's definitely not game breaking because most people don't notice it. It's small enough that most people don't even notice that it's different than the game they had on their original system as a kid. But there is a slight difference from some of the videos I've watched.
Well, what I'm comparing it to is I do have one of the collection discs for the PlayStation that I play on my PlayStation 3. And all the controls on that feel really tight. Really tight and clean. So, now I don't know, I've never known they kind of cleaned some of this up for PlayStation 3. obviously they had to put it onto a disc because none of these.
I was going to say, is it the
before.
difference between the PS3 controller and the Genesis controller? Maybe just because those are like very different feeling buttons, even between those two controllers.
I mean, to play the games,
and I love the PlayStation controllers. That's one of my favorite controllers.
For sure. But there's several games that are like, that are repeated. Streets of Rage 2.
Yeah,
I play
Sonics.
The Sonics.
Yeah.
Those controls are tighter. There's less lag. They're a little easier. I don't think it's the controller. I think it's the interface, the system, whatever.
Okay.
Now I don't know that for sure. I don't know that. I didn't go and play on the PlayStation 3 in my room and then run out to the living room and play the Mini to compare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know when I played it on the PlayStation 3, I went, this is just like, this is a Friday night.
Yeah.
I just got done at middle school. You know what I mean? When I'm playing the Mini, I'm going, was I always this bad? What's going on? This is way harder than I remember. I still played a bunch of those games.
Yeah.
I'm going through a thing though where like I won't let myself turn on Earthworm Jim yet because I'm trying to reacclimate myself.
Gotcha.
Yep. So I'm playing all these other games to try and get myself back in the groove of playing a Sega.
Yeah.
Before I go to play my my Holy Grail games. So
we have played some 2-player Toe Jam and Earl. Man, that game is so 90s-er than I remember.
Oh.
I don't like Toe Jam and Earl. I never played that one as a kid at all. I remember playing that one for the first time when I first bought my Wii. Because it was one of the first games they put on the Virtual Console, and I bought it because I was like, I've never played Toe Jam and Earl. I'm going to play it. And I hated it. I did not understand what I was supposed to be doing, and just, I don't know. Wasn't for me, man. Wasn't for me.
It's a game.
I dig it, but there's a lot of weird nuances to it.
Yeah.
It is.
Maybe I need to give it a second chance.
Well, you should give it a second chance. You should play it with somebody.
Yeah.
It's definitely a better 2-player game.
It's a better 2-player game. It's also, one of the main things I find that you have to adjust to. Like, you're meant to use the presence.
Okay.
For me, I'm a game hoarder. Like, anyway.
Same here.
So like anything I pick up, any special items I get, I'm like, gotta save that. There's gonna be a time when I need this and I can't use it.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
And the Toe Jam and Earls now. A lot of it is finding where you're supposed to use what, but you're also there's a bunch that you're just meant to use because you know what I mean. Like that's part of the game is, instead of hobbling over for 45 minutes to get across the 8-pixel, or 8-screen wide thing. Yeah, you're supposed to use the sneakers and run across it. You know what I mean? Like,
gotcha.
At least that's been my experience when that's what I remember.
Okay. I'm gonna have to give it another go sometime for sure.
It's not a super great game.
Yeah.
No, yeah. It's
You're not like missing out on a classic.
It is fun for what it is
because
it, especially like at the time it came out, I don't think you saw many things that were quite that irreverent, especially in video games.
Yeah.
So in this one, like you're just these weird aliens, and they're hitting you with like the 16-bit version of what they think hip hop is. On the soundtrack, and you got this weird map and these two weird guys who are making these dumb jokes, and then you've got sneakers that make you run fast, and then you walk up to this weird blob that is wearing a witch's hat, and it'll heal you. And you don't even know what's going to happen until it attacks you, and then you find out that it's good. And then you're walking, and all of a sudden there's just a hula girl, and now your character can't move for a minute because it's doing the hula dance. Like, you just didn't see stuff like that. It was like everything that happened next was goofy. Now, once you've seen it happen 4 or 5 times, you're like, oh, God, just stop dancing. Just trying to move, And you're definitely right about the hoarding of the presents and stuff like that. But so it's definitely not like a game that it's like, oh, it's the greatest, and you got to go play it and start to finish. You'll love every second of it. But it is this goofy, fun little gem.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would definitely say like it's better with 2 people, but give it another whirl.
Okay.
So what about? Have you played the Contra on it at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so the Contra.
I watched the kids play it a
Did
little
you?
bit. Yeah.
One is super hard. That game.
I mean,
is
Contra is always hard.
always
right?
hard.
Yeah.
When we were talking about some of the video games coming out, there's that new Contra coming out.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like, isn't this super weird that there's like different characters and a panda bear and like
yeah.
a robot?
Yeah.
The Contra on that totally has like a dude, a chick, a werewolf, and a robot.
Yeah.
And, like,
Really?
Yeah.
So when
because that's what Connor was the werewolf and Spencer was the robot. Like as soon as they turned that on, Spencer was like, "I want to be the robot."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Robot?"
Right.
And sure enough, there's a werewolf and a robot, and that's what they were running around as.
Yeah, super
crazy.
weird. Well, it's super frustrating too because it doesn't matter at all. like
Right.
one. I mean, they kind of have different attack. Like the werewolf is a little taller than, but like they don't.
One of them dies slightly less quickly than
Exactly.
the other.
You know what I mean? Exactly. Like no.
It's still pretty fast.
Nobody's tough. Nobody can take more than one hit. Nobody. Man, that game is frustrating.
I did play a little bit of Street Fighter.
Yeah.
That game is unplayable with a 3-button controller.
Always has been.
What in
no,
They do
man.
because don't they do the thing where you have to hit the start
You hit
button
the start button
and
to switch it.
it?
Super easy.
Ooh, if I
that's
could.
where
That's not easy.
that's where I learned to play
You know what's
Street Fighter.
easy
So.
is what's easy is just hitting the other button.
I mean,
That's
you
I was
already
gonna
on
say,
the
I feel
controller.
like, yeah, that's fighting games is where Super Nintendo
I was
got the better
explaining
deal.
to Christy, who could not have cared less
Oh, that's
about all
great.
that, because I was like, I'm surprised they even put this on here because it's already on this other mini and it
Yeah.
works on the other mini, and it's not going to work on this one unless it's just on there as a way to sell
They-
6-button controllers
Because they do
when
sell.
they come out.
Well, they do. You can
Are
buy
they Genesis? Because I couldn't find any Genesis
So
branded ones.
they're
or Sega branded
selling
ones.
it through Retrobit, which sells a bunch of controllers and stuff like that. But that is what they're
So those are
considering.
the official
That's
ones or
what they're
whatever?
considering
Okay.
their official
Then I have
ones.
seen 'em.
So yeah,
But that's what I was looking for stuff like that. But I was telling her, I was like, unless they just wanted it to sell the 6-button controllers, and even so, if that were the case, they should have put Mortal Kombat on here.
Yeah.
If you wanted Mortal Kombat, man, you had to have the Genesis version.
because it had blood
Yeah.
or had the blood code, so you can
it had the
unlock
code.
you can
'Cause
unlock the
Super Nintendo,
blood.
They were both totally toned down to the disappointment of everyone who ever would have played those games. No one wanted to play Mortal Kombat without fatalities. But they took them all out of the console versions because of ratings and whatever, except for the Genesis one had.
The fatalities were still there. They just took the blood away from it,
Right.
and they got rid of the gorier
Well, I was
fatalities.
about to say, yeah, they weren't like they didn't have like they weren't like holding spinal cords.
yeah,
and stuff
for
like
sure.
that
I
out
think
on
they
the
still
Super
did,
Nintendo
right?
Either.
Yeah.
I didn't think so. I thought
They still
changed.
did the head rip off one, and there was a little cord dangling.
Did they?
Absolutely.
I thought they changed all that stuff.
All I
They
know,
changed a couple of them.
I just know that like the Super Nintendo corrected that immediately with Mortal Kombat 2 because the sales of the
Oh, yeah.
Genesis version
Yeah.
were like it was like 10-1. It was
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like Nintendo
I
lost.
bet that blood code moved more Sega consoles
Yeah.
than we could ever imagine.
Like they rectified that super
Yeah.
fast. Like by the time Mortal Kombat 2 came out, you didn't even need a code. It was full on. Every bit of gore was there.
Yeah.
They're like, our bad guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah.
please buy our game on our
Yeah.
system.
We're sorry. We're sorry we
Yeah.
listened to your parents.
Yeah, we're sorry we
Yeah.
listened to your parents. Exactly.
I just gotta say before we move on too far, I'm fine with hitting start and switching. That's how I learned to play Street Fighter.
I want to try it some
and-
more. I couldn't get the hang of it. It was funny because it was one of those things where like the kids were playing that game and they started out fighting each other and then they decided to fight the computer and they were taking turns fighting the computer and they got to like the third guy and couldn't beat the third guy every time. So I was like, I got this. Because they were like, can you do it? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Let me do this. And then I got wrecked because I couldn't figure out how to kick the guy. I was like, I can only punch. There's only 3 buttons. I can't do anything. What is going on? And I got totally wrecked.
Yeah.
And then they were unimpressed with me, so they snatched the controller back, and that was the only time I got to play it. So I lost out on my chance to look cool in front of the 5-year-olds with Street Fighter. Thanks, 3-button controller.
Let's see, what else did I play? Those the two. What are the two like shooter games? Because those are both terrible.
Fantasy Zone's on there, right? I've always liked Fantasy Zone. I like those games.
think of
Yeah, no, there's two that are that are like the Jet.
It's not.
Oh man,
Yeah, I'm drawing a complete blank. I keep thinking Strider, but that's a different. That's
Strider's awful too.
Oh, you don't like Strider?
So a lot of these games I'm frustrated because I'm so bad at.
That's fair.
Okay, Strider is super hard, and I am not enjoying playing Strider at all.
Okay.
For some reason, I keep going back to it.
Oh well.
Maybe
you'll learn to love it.
Well, no, you know what it is. It's so simplistic that I'm like, there's no way I'm this bad at this game. This game is, it's so simple and easy.
You keep calling yourself a punk, and then you keep taking the bait.
Right, exactly. So I keep going back to Strider and not getting anywhere. I mean, like not even getting past like the first 3 or 4 obstacles, man. I'm just terrible at it. The jet games are the jet shooters. Do you have them there?
So I'm trying to look for.
Scroll back. No, it's.
I think I played Space Harrier. Space Harrier 2.
And go over.
Super Fantasy Zone. Thunder Force. Thunder Force 3. This right here. Thunder Force 3.
No, go one more over.
There's your favorite game, Strider. I don't know. I don't see any other.
Gradius on there, is there?
Is it Gradius? No. Just Shinobi.
What else is on there? These are not.
Darius? Darius? Is that it?
Where is that?
This right here?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, Darius. I think it's Darius and Space Harrier. I've been playing them so much you'd think I would, but those games are super hard.
Yeah.
And
Shooters usually are, though.
Yeah. And they're just weird. Like, I get okay with those. You learn the pattern, right? And so it's all about the repetition, and you go through and you learn the pattern. So then you're able to avoid the thing, and then the next thing kills you, and then you're able to avoid 2 things, and then the next thing kills you, and then you're able to avoid.
It's like a Simon with guns.
It's like a Simon with guns. I've been playing those a lot.
Yeah.
Particularly, I think Space Harrier is the one I've been playing a lot. The pattern's a little easier to get used to. But it's the same kind of thing where I'm like, it's just pattern recognition. But I get to like 5 steps, and I'm like, I don't know what's coming next.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if I remember the 6th one, I forget one of the first 3.
Yeah.
So then like I die right away. I'm like, this is.
Oh, jeez.
So,
I'm looking forward to sitting down and playing Beyond Oasis. That's a game I've always wanted to play. So that one is it's an action RPG. Mm-hmm. I guess Zelda-esque as far as like top-down sword slashing action RPG, and it's one that I've always wanted to try. It's one of those games that it's gotten kind of pricey, like to buy the actual physical cartridge for. So when I saw it was going to be on here, I was like, awesome! I want to sit down and play that game, because that's one that I want to play it. I don't necessarily want to spend the money to own the game, kind of a thing. So that's one that I'm excited to try. I've never played the Castlevania on the system.
It's so that's a good one. I actually was
Bloodlines.
Playing, I was actually playing that one.
Yeah.
That's the one where there's 2 characters.
Yeah, there's one with the spear, and
one with a whip.
Yeah.
But then I got mad. I got to the second bad guy, second boss.
Yeah.
And he just drowns you, and I couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
But that's a fun one. It's much more in the style of the first Castlevania, not Simon's Quest,
right?
So it's a fun one. It's a good one. I was just thinking of something else I was playing a lot of was
Gunstar Heroes is another one I want to play that I've never really played through.
Shinobi's
on there. Shinobi 3's on here.
Shinobi 3. Yeah, I haven't played much Shinobi. The Ghouls and Ghosts that's on there.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, boy, those are hard games, too.
Well, you know what? I don't know what it was. I tried to play Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super Nintendo Mini?
Yeah. Ghosts and Goblins.
Ghosts and Goblins.
Called it on there, yeah.
And I couldn't get,
Yeah,
I couldn't get past 3 monsters. I couldn't get anywhere on that game.
I'm in my underwear in 8 seconds on that.
Yeah.
I was doing pretty good on this one.
Cool.
I was like, I got this one. I don't know if it's easier or if I was just primed for it. But I was having fun with that one, getting a little deep on it. I haven't gotten into any of the any of the RPGs on there. And I just have a thing that holds me back from RPGs. Like, I'm not going to play it for 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
It's
Contra, I'll get on there, I'll play for 10 minutes, and when I'm frustrated and want to shut it off, like, I can do that.
Yeah.
When I jump on, like, for an RPG, you know, and I'm like, I don't have 3 hours to play this right now.
Right, yeah,
You know?
totally. I know, there's so many RPGs that I want to experience that I just don't think I will ever have the time to experience.
Right.
Because they take so much time to sit down and
by the time you have time to even start them, there'll be 25 more on the list.
Exactly. Here's something that I know that John will super appreciate. But did you see that they actually have a Tower of Power, they're calling it, that you could buy for your Sega Genesis Mini? Now, it's only actually been released in Japan as a retail item, but they sent it to as a press kit to various people in the U.S., but it is they're not real. They don't do anything. But there's a Sega CD that you can put on the bottom of the Genesis Mini, a 32X that plugs into the slot on the top, a Sonic and Knuckles adapter that plugs into that, and a Sonic cartridge that plugs into that, so that you get the full Tower of Power to display with your Sega Genesis Mini.
I will pay any price.
Isn't that ridiculous?
And it's just decorative.
It's just decorative.
You know, I noticed that, like, the top worked.
Yeah.
Like, the game slot opened. And I was like, well, that's that's dumb.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
So, of course, since it's the Japan one, it says Mega Drive on everything, not Genesis. But there were Genesis branded ones. But like I said, so far, those were only given as press kit items to various...
well, if the suits at Sega are listening, and I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
They're just trying to figure out if there's a market for it in the U.S.
Everybody wants them.
Guarantee that there is.
They do. Everybody wants them. Now, you can buy this one if you really want it. They're going for anywhere between $60 and $80. The Japanese ones.
I ain't buying none of
So
that
it's
Mega Drive crap.
So it's like buying the system again just to get the decorative stuff for it. But for collectors out there who really want that, it is an option. You can get on eBay right now and get it for about that price.
When they scrape the Mega Drive off and paint Genesis on there,
there you
I'll
go.
be there.
Hey, you never know. They'll find a way to release that probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I'm sure they will.
yeah. So
they'll release it, and then 8 months after that, they'll have like the working Sega CD one.
A real
yeah.
the Sega CD Mini.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good Sega CD games.
I want a Sega CD Mini. It won't have any of the games I want on it, but I still want it.
Yeah, I wonder if there'd be a lot of rights issues with some of those.
Probably.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like I would love to have like the Spider-Man game or the X-Men game, or whatever on the Genesis.
Those are the ones they probably wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a lot of.
I can probably just go buy a Genesis and those games
with the CD games, the Sega CD games. I think there's a lot of rights issues with the music.
Yeah,
because they went above and beyond because it was a CD, so
we could put
really good
real
music.
songs on there.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally.
Do you think they don't own the rights to Sonic Boom anymore?
Sonic Boom.
Actually,
Sonic
I think that's
Boom,
one they don't. I think
Sonic
really.
They for sure do. They for sure have that because that's on Super Smash Brothers. That's one of the songs that's on
Is
Super
Sonic
Smash
on
Brothers.
Super Smash Brothers?
Yeah, Sonic's on there. Man, dude, everybody's on Smash Brothers.
Well,
now.
that's on Super Smash Brothers. That's not.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean Sega owns the rights.
They would have probably got it from Sega though. There's a ton of different Sonic songs on there, and I don't know.
Rights are weird.
Nintendo figured it out, so
Yeah.
I'm sure. I'm sure Sega could figure it out if it's not theirs.
Sega couldn't figure out how to keep making consoles. So.
Well, they're back now.
This doesn't count.
They're like, we get the Mini, and now TurboGrafx is hot on the tails. I can't wait for that. I just want to see how the TurboGrafx Mini is going to turn out.
Hey, we need to do.
I just want to laugh at every game that isn't Bonk.
we gotta do a live play along. Just a live like when we do we'll do a live video when we get the TurboGrafx.
Oh,
and we'll
man,
just all play.
We should just
all
get together.
Wear GoPro helmets.
We should just get together and stream like the Genesis Mini one night or something. Just us playing we'll do the same thing for the TurboGrafx when it comes out.
Well, we had the request. We need to do the Friday the 13th game.
Oh yeah, we can stream the Friday. So apparently we're gonna start the stream easy.
The stream easy.
We're gonna sign up a Twitch channel. We're gonna start playing video games on Twitch.
I'm gonna get a divorce.
You need more time, John. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's a great place to end today's episode. A lot of good discussion in there for a lot of different topics. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you again for joining us. If you are new to the show, we have several different ways that you can check out our podcast. We do have a video version, which you can watch here on YouTube. If you found us this way, please consider hitting that subscribe button and also like and comment on the videos. Help us spread the word on the show. If you prefer to listen to us via audio, we're on all of your preferred podcasting platforms, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, and all of that good stuff. So you should be able to find us, follow us, subscribe to us, rate us, review us, do all that good stuff so that we can help spread the word on the show. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
No, I mean, we went through a lot of topics today, so, I mean, as always, if you guys have thoughts or additional questions or whatever, comment down below, or up above, or depending on
wherever the comment section
wherever the
may
comments
be.
are, find us somewhere. Let us know how you think Jaren's doing as host. And
comment down below if you want the stream easy.
Oh, yeah, there
Let
we
us
go.
know.
If we want to figure out a stream
Let
some
us
video.
know.
Video games. I like playing video games. Might as well do it on the internet with everybody else.
There you go.
hey, I hear there's money in that.
We got to build the brand.
We got to figure out how.
Just build the brand.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us. See you next time here on the Geek Easy.
The Geek Easy podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy podcast.